I figured I'd do another little live deal since you guys tend to like those more than you do me taking time to edit out a fishing video, right? You guys know you do. So I went shopping today and I had a thought of possibly spending some money and then I didn't, right? So I went up to Rogers Sporting Goods and I was kind of just going to check out the rods and I almost bought, can anybody guess? No, not another 13 fishing. But I did look at those and I almost bought another one. But no, I went up looking for, and I guess let's talk about these guys right here, Chatterbait. I went up looking at, whoa, not that. I keep hearing talk, so if you guys follow the channel, I've been having some issues with hookups. I'm like, man, what's going on? And I think a lot of it is just the fact I'm using a lot of different rods, a lot of different chatterbaits, and it just, all those things combined have just, I feel I'm off on my chatterbait game, right? I'm still getting plenty of, I know how to fish. I feel I know how to fish a chatterbait. I'm getting hits. It's when I feel a fish and I feel the weight of the fish, in my mind, whether it be a chatterbait or any other bait, and I've kind of been having that same issue with rattle traps. As you'll see in a video coming up, I lose a giant on a rattle trap. And yes, it was a freaking red-eye shad, but I do have to give props to red-eye shad. I'll talk about that in a minute. So anyway, I've been having, I got the fish, I don't have the fish. Like, what is going on? If you guys follow the channel, you probably heard me talking about, well, maybe it's because I thought I was going to try to, be able to use a little bit lighter rod because I had a little smaller hook coming on some of these 14-gram chatterbaits coming from AliExpress. Well, I've talked myself into now that although it may not be a big deal, that I think the issue is the fact that a lot of guys, I only found one video. So what I did today is I just went through and I kind of rewatched, re-educated myself again, which, I fished chatterbaits for years. I've watched all the, Brett Height and just almost anytime somebody puts out a chatterbait video, I watch what's their take on chatterbaits, right? It's one of my favorite things to fish. Somebody doing something that I'm not familiar with, and I'll be honest, I went right back through, and it's basically everything I watched it. And I think Brett Height's the one that started. I don't think that everybody was just doing it this way, and he's the one that brought it to attention, and then so other people do. I think they've just kind of copycatted the way he does it, and I'm sure it works, but it's not for everybody. It's not for every type of water and all that kind of stuff, right? But they use a glass rod, 7'4", 7'3", 7'2". If you guys know the channel, I don't like long rods in the first place, but you could do the same thing. They even make it, I even looked it up, the combat stick. Tackle Warehouse has them for $199, a 7-foot medium heavy, which would probably do the same thing. And a lot of guys will tell you, oh, you need the long rod for this and for that. But, you can really go out and catch fish with a 6-foot rod. If you've got a good rod and you're used to the rod, usually the harder the hook set, the better, as long as you do have a concept of your drag and you're not snapping rods. Like you'll see guys, they snap rods, they snap lines on a hard hook set because they had way too heavy a line for the rod rating, drag set, maybe for the line but not for the rod, or vice versa. They had a good solid rod but not a good enough line, and a drag set tight. I typically know how I am. I have a little bit of a loose drag because I do not want to have my line break. I would rather have a fish jump and spit it out than to set a hook and have that thing snap. That's why I don't tie the FG knot. I've had that happen to me with FG knot. And I don't care what any of you guys say, the FG knot sucks. It is not a tried and true 100%. You can tie it on the go, in a hurry, and rely on it. So why mess with tying it in the first place, right? Stick to your tried and true. Bam, you can tie it quick. It's a good knot. It may make a little more clunk clunk going through a guide or two or something like that, but it's a solid knot. And so those are the knots I stick with. I do not want my line to break. I don't want to lose fish either, so I'm going to focus on maybe just only using the right rods for the right baits and not worry so much. Like I've talked about it, and you've heard me talk about it. Because I want to catch the biggest bass possible on the lightest rod, but I want to be able to have good solid hook sets and not lose fish due to the fact that the rod was too soft or my drag was too loose. But I'd rather go that route than have my stuff snap, line break, bait's gone. That way on that side of it is a lot more costly way to go on trying to ensure that you don't miss the fish, which normally most of these hooks, especially nowadays, come with they're sharp hooks. I thought at one point I had an issue with one of these baits. I don't remember. I may have lost it since then. One of these Berkeley baits, little underspins, I felt had the barb wasn't big enough. And I think there is a trend to some of these barbs I don't feel are as big as what they used to be back in the day. I honestly think that could be an issue. Hang on, we've got some noise here, and then I'll continue. So anyway, back to what I was talking about on ensuring hookups. So I rewatched some different Chatterbait videos and actually saw a couple new ones. And I really only saw one guy. There was one video that the guy explained what he thought some of the issue was and why a lot of guys are using glass rods, more forgiving and different stuff. And one of them is this right here, which I've talked about earlier in the week, or was it last week? I talked about what I think may be happening, why the smaller hooks aren't as good. And I may end up going all the way back. No, not to jackhammers. I'm trying to find our good jackhammer here. But if you guys remember, I don't have any right now. I sold them all to Charles. The Z-Man original Chatterbait is a big honking hook, bigger than makes this one almost look small. Not quite, but close. But then you have, that's a jackhammer. And even though it's a pretty big hook, look how that blade could literally cause you some issues, right? So I think what happens and why a lot of guys that, they claim that the, fiberglass is more forgiving and this different stuff, and you kind of load the rod. But I think what you're doing more than anything is when you want to fill the fish, what is happening, I think it lets that get pulled for sure out of the way. Then when you yank, that's what ensures the hook set's more on a hook set like that, kind of a side sweeping and pulling. Because if you just, if you go G-Man on this, you try to go Gerald Swindle and do the little, what does he call it, that he, slack line them. He gets slack line and then pops it. If that fish, came up, it depends on, you never know what a fish is going to do, but a lot of times if they've sucked it in, they jump in behind it. And if they've knocked slack and bent that back when they bite, well, what you've got here is a can opener, a mouth opener. When you pull that crazy hard all at once hook set, which I think that's part of what happens, it pops that mouth up open enough, then especially if you got a rod that is real stout braid or stout line, thick line, you're literally just boop, you pull it right out of their mouth on that hard, bone jarring hook set. That's why a lot of guys, part of the issue is why the softer rods work maybe as well or better. If you wait and you fill that rod load, what you're probably doing, and the fish probably won't let go. He probably thinks that whatever he bit, it actually making him hold on tighter. He probably thinks that thing's wiggling inside his mouth trying to get loose, and you pull that open, and that's what helps with the hook set. So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. So I'll just talk briefly about what I'm going to do, which is basically nothing. I'm going to keep fishing the same baits I got to kind of, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. Just to retest my theories on what I'm thinking is going on. I do have a couple more that I had already ordered of the AliExpress ones with the bigger hooks. And I'm not going to lie. Just due to that, even probably no matter how the results come out, I'm going to slowly work my way going back to not the Z-Mans, because these are still like crazy priced. But I'm gonna start ordering. I just have 2 coming at the moment, but then all the colors I have that I like that I'm sure work, because I bought like every color AliExpress had. I am gonna end up, going to the bigger, back to the bigger hooks and stick with the bigger rods. Because what I can, without a shadow of a doubt, tell you that is, if you try to go too light or too soft, you just lose a lot more fish on a chatterbait, because it's like when the bite is good and on, it's fine. When the bite's just a little bit off, you need that stouter rod. Like the hook, these are very good hooks. The jackhammer can take a definitely lighter rod than the Z-Man Original, but it can also take just as heavy as a rod as the Z-Man Original without getting, it's not going to straighten this hook out. And so in all honesty, that's probably what you want to stick with. Instead of trying to go, well, I can go a little bit softer and then I can use that rod for something else. No, I think you kind of need that dedicated chatterbait rod. And I've kind of gotten away from that, which the 13 Fishing is a good rod. I think I need to up my drags just a click or 2 more on the rods I'm running 15-pound test. So you're going to see the 13 Fishing rod, and then the rod I just got, which is the Sharp 15-pound leaders. One of them may actually have 20-pound braid to the 15-pound leader, but the drag's like maxed. I don't want the, like right before the rod or the line to break, but I'm going to definitely make sure I get that up close. And I'm going to still play with the Quick and the Sharp and figure out which one is best for our 1/2 ounce rattle traps. Let me get one of those out. Because on my rattle trap deal, and I'll talk about that real quick, and I still think I like the Booyah Hard Knockers best overall, and I do like the hooks they come with. I think slightly better than I do these, because I like this red eye shad, especially this color. I don't know where my other one is. Oh, it's over here. And if you guys watched the last couple videos, I've lost like a bunch of white 1/2 ounce chatterbaits, or white 1/2 ounce rattle traps. It's just a hard color to keep in a 1/2 ounce. So I bought 2 of each. Well, guess what? Yeah, that's the last one of the Booyah Hard Knock. I already lost one last week. But I'll be honest, this color or this bait, I'm not sure which, but I think it was the color. It's a little more white. This kind of bone color gets kind of grayish looking. It wasn't working as well as this color right here. But I had this bait, and let me get my other one out. And this bait kind of throwing me for a fit on a few different fish, especially this one. This is an old Excalibur that I had custom painted. And it's just a little one knocker, double tap, whatever they call them nowadays. I want you guys to look. And they have different size hooks. Now here's what I did, and I kind of reversed the order and I got goofed up. I almost think I had this one I was throwing the other, in that last video you saw with me, and actually the video before that. The last video you just saw was me and Charles fishing in, oh shoot, which one was that? Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was the last video. The week before we were fishing, oh my goodness. Okay, this was 2 weeks ago. The video you just saw, we started out and I caught him on the Dig It, and then we went to his pit and I caught him on basically purple haze worm, and the purple haze chatterbait is coming up, as you'll see. But this bait, man, I just felt like I was losing way too many fish, and I had it on the Quick, which is, they say medium light. It's closer to a medium, but I almost feel like I was yanking it out of their mouths. So then I really wasn't paying attention to hook size because I had put that one up, and I was throwing this one. I downsized and went to the feeling, and definitely, man, you guys are going to see it. I lost a giant bass. So I'm going for sure with, I think the Quick is the rod of choice, I think, or the Sharp, or the 13 Fishing. I'll be honest, back in the day, I basically only had half-ounce baits. I had the Chatterbaits in half-ounce, these in half-ounce, and I got by with the medium-heavy, 6'7" or 8" is always what I used, and I felt I didn't lose as many fish back then. I felt I was probably also more accustomed to the hook setting. Everything's off a little bit now, and I think I've gotten a little lax to my hook sets. I don't think I'm actually yanking hard enough initially to set the hook real good, but I feel that these are a type of bait. As long as you yank pretty hard, it's almost hard for the fish to throw these. I don't know. So anyway, I got to work on that game, and it'll probably be on this weekend coming up. I'm going to be throwing on the hang on. Rattle traps will probably be on the Sharp, or on the Quick, I mean, which is a medium light. The medium will be throwing the Chatterbaits. Because I think that's one thing about I think the Strike King does have a little bit stouter hooks, just a touch heavier gauge wire than the original Rattle Traps or the Booyah Hard Knockers or the older Excaliburs, which pretty much what I was used to using. And these are my 3/4 ounce Booyahs. And although these are a little bigger, I'd almost say the hooks are about the same meatiness as the half ounces. So I probably just need to throw them all on the big stuff for now and just check my hookup ratios. If I feel I'm still losing them, I'll go back to the Quick, but maybe just alternate chatterbaits between the Sharp, which is my medium, which feels even heavier than the 13 Fishing Fate Black, and mess with those. So then we're going to do that. Then I'm kind of working on my swim bait game also, and this is it before I get to the swim baits. That's a chatterbait. I'm just going to try to take my black and blue instead of worrying about switching blades and this and that, because I like the black and blue that comes on the $3.50 ones from AliExpress. So now this is just a funky, cheap fingernail polish I bought at the dollar store just to try it. But I think I'm working on trying to paint the blades just a metallic gold and try that. And then I'll do that instead of having to worry about trying to get one, pull that skirt off, put a different skirt, paint the head black, that kind of thing. It'd be simpler if I can just figure out which kind of paint to paint the blades gold, some kind of metallic paint or fingernail polish on a couple. And honestly, it doesn't make a huge difference. I just feel there's a time when that black and blue will work. And then lastly on this, before I go to swim baits, I'm also trying the Baby Rage Menace trailers, and as you'll see coming out on this video that's going to drop to probably first thing in the morning, I was in there having so much luck with Purple Haze, me and Charles, and then I just figured it was fate. I lost one, and then I got it right back because the bass, like, it just was floating. It was the older one, so it was just sitting there floating. And so I just cut down, if you can see how much, probably just over an inch, and I'm probably going to go a little bit further. I just cut that down and stuck it on my purple chatterbait that's also from AliExpress, just so that you just want about that much, like you would on a normal whatever trailer, so you can cut them down. If you can tell that much, there's like your smooth part, and then about a half an inch, which is about cutting an inch off, is about the right size. The trick to these is you don't want to really leave them on. These are salt impregnated. This is metal and paint, and if you leave salty stuff on your baits, it definitely can start rusting, right, and messing up your stuff. So I'm going to be experimenting with just my old zinkers, because one thing about the zinkers, you can't find, once they get old and worn out, not even just the fact they'll last forever on there, you can't hardly find, not that I know of, a plastic that gets as soft as these zinker. Even they get softer than their own stuff, because the way they impregnate the salt, once you do pull these and the salt comes out, and you'll never totally get the salt out. You can tell by when you cut one, there's still a little bit of salt in there. So they'll help a fish hold on longer. But though that air pockets it created in there makes this thing so soft that I think just figuring out the right length to run one on the back of a chatterbait will be game on. Anytime you would want to, run those straight tail things, like instead of having a whole bunch of these around, I think you could get the same thing. I don't think a fish can really tell the difference between this shaking in the water or that. And I'm also experimenting with, let me show you on this one. Now it started to come out of it, but I laid it in the box and flattened it out. And so it does stay for a while. It tends to go back, but you could literally lay like 5 or so in before you're going out fishing, and it will flatten the very, very back of that tail, which would give it a more like a fin-like appearance. So my thoughts are that I'll be able to utilize just old zinkers that you would normally just, I don't know, it's like they just never wear out. I end up throwing a bunch in my box and ended up with bag back in the bag, and then I put all these old zinkers that they still work. Like they could still work. They change color a little bit and they fade somewhat, but they can still work on the back as a trailer. But then that throwing these and watching them go through the water, these are also awesome little, about the right size. They let the bait, the chatterbait still kind of has a side to side, but yet they've got a little kick. And these seem like they're not too big and not too small. I think the full size, these are the 3-inch, the Baby Rage Menace. I think the 4-inch, I mean, you could use them if you're strictly wanting craw imitation. Like if you were like me, I used to use the Smalley Beavers and the Riot Little Fuzzy or whatever they call them, because those still work too. I have always thought that I more like to try to imitate a crawdad with a chatterbait more so than a fish. So anyway, that's enough about that. We'll talk more about that. So still not sure what I'm doing with the chatterbaits on as far as. What's up, Jay? North Carolina. Don't go to bed, Jay. He's probably older than I am. I probably need to go to bed early too, but. So we've got some underspins, and you can get these, the Berkeley. Let's talk about our little swim bait game. I kind of like these. They're not bad. I seem to have decent luck, except that one I had, and I think I lost it. I think the barb was like just molded wrong, had gotten bent down or whatever. But I typically like the smaller. I like to downsize. Like when I'm on a fish bite or try to be, I try to go with chatterbaits. Then I might go to spinnerbaits. I don't usually like to go to big, full size swim baits that are actually bigger than my chatterbait. I like to, if I feel the chatterbait bite is off, that's, when the water's warm. When it's colder water, I guess it's fair game on anything. But so I throw the smaller ones. Like these are probably my favorite size and color, and the 3.3 inch electric shad, and these are the Guggen ones. And I think it's the Guggen ones I like better. They got a little more blue tint to them than I think which ones did I have? I think I had the Strike King ones. But so I like those as far as my full size. But, like anything else, they're pretty expensive. So, of course, you can go to AliExpress, and then you can get these little smaller ones, which also work. But you need different size heads for them and all that. So I got a few different sizes to be playing around with from AliExpress. But if you remember right, and I've beat this bait here up, catching fish, I had this little jig, and I could not, for the life of me, I'm like, where did I get that little wire jig? And I I knew that it at one time had a skirt material on it. I bought it as a finesse jig of some type, but I couldn't remember. I thought it was jewel, but I could never find them. And I could have swore I looked at Rogers before. Well, I was up at Rogers today, and I was just walking through. I'm like, I'm gonna double check the jigs again. And guess what I found? The Pro Spider jigs. That's what the ones I had bought before. Now they had a few different sizes. They only had one left of the 7/16, so I bought it. I guess we'll pull it up and look. I know somebody's like, oh, you should throw those as just jigs, you know, finesse jigs. And I might. But the reason I bought them is because it's the, where did it go? It should be the exact same hook size and everything as this. So then if I want to go deep, I've got a lot bigger, heavier one to use. And then I'm pretty sure the 3/16 is what I already have. It may not be though. And I'm gonna leave one of each. Because I'm gonna go back up. I wanted to double check before I just, bought a whole bunch. But as long as this is what I thought it was, I'll probably keep one of each just to run as a regular finesse jig at some point, even though I hardly ever throw jigs. But I'm gonna take this skirt off just to double check myself. And Jewel, if you guys don't know about Jewel and you're looking for, they are pretty good. I've always liked the Jewel. I mainly just used to buy, like they come in a 2-pack, the finesse ones. I used to just get those and like those. I tore that skirt to heck, but I don't really ever use that. So yeah, that is the same. Let me pull this off. I'm pretty sure that, yeah. So it's a little beaten up, worse for wear, but that is the same exact one. And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the 3/16 is the one I'd had. So I got 3/16, 5/16, and 7/16. I don't know. They're all about 16ths on Jewels. And there used to be a time I myself never really went into crazy. It's got to be this and that exact size, but I used to watch several fishing shows and listen to the guys swear by just a certain, weight on certain size baits and stuff like that. I think we've gotten away from that now somewhat, but I know. Do you guys ever watch? Oh shoot, was it G3 Boats or whoever that dude that he always had Lonnie Stanley. He was buddies with Lonnie Stanley, the guy that created the Stanley jigs or whatever. They'd always go fishing. Those guys were fun to watch because, well, they were goofy and they knew how to catch fish. Yeah, that's definitely bigger. So this will probably be the main size I'll use. Probably the main size I'll go back up next time I'm at Rogers, and I'll probably buy, I don't know, 3 or 4 packs just so I've got several of these, because these seem to just work. Like you can throw them. I feel like I can throw them more around wood, and I just I wasn't getting hung up enough. And I used them, started last year using them basically, and you can go with a little bit, the hook kind of is that in between. See how I kind of rig it a little bit down to where it almost has the hook exposed a little more. If I went too high, it wouldn't have as much of a exposed deal with a bigger bait. But you can also rig a little bit, I don't know, you can rig a lot of different size swim baits in that range that I like, from like the 3/3 down to the probably like a 2-inch. This guy may be 2. Let's just let's take a look. Oh yeah, we're only a half hour in. You guys got a long way to go on one of my live videos. This may be too small. I just wanted to look. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to put that little dude on that big old head. That's probably too small too. Yeah. Somebody will go, you can do it. Yeah, you could do that. And if you wanted to get, if you're wanting to get a real little bait down deep, it would actually go. But for me, it's probably a no. But then I also, and I forget the name of them, but oh man, they had them up at Rogers, and I almost bought them. I just wasn't ready to get them yet because I wanted to double check the size. And if you guys remember, I'm in that video, me and Charles at Creek and Stream, and I go walking to get his bait, and he says, keep it. They're little bitty underspins they make, and I think they make an 1/8 and a 16th ounce. They're like a 4-pack for $5, almost like $1 a head. These would probably end up being like $2.50 a head. I'm going to get some of those for these littler baits, just a little underspin, because you could actually run that on an 1/8 ounce crappie jig and still get by. That's just that fine tuning it, like going super crazy finesse, right? Beyond what tactical bassing and a lot of guys go on finesse. Dustin says he makes his own stuff. He customized hook and weights. Yeah, I'll be honest. I mainly like to fish. I don't like soft plastics. You guys watch the channel, maybe like, dude, you love the Z-Man. I know. I'll use them. I don't really like it. I wish I could throw a chatterbait without a trailer, but you don't have something on the back of a chatterbait, you're sucking. So you got to have them there. The bite gets real tough, you got to have some kind of worm. I got back in the day the old Jean LaRue hooktail worm, just a red hooktail worm. Man, those things were money. And I've kind of adapted to the Z-Man stuff just because once you get the feel and know how to use it, it lasts forever and it just gets bit. It's one of the softest plastics, you could use. But I really do not like throwing that. I like throwing hard baits. I like throwing chatterbaits. Never been a huge spinnerbait guy. Once I got away from spinnerbaits, I just kind of like spinnerbaits suck. And I still feel that way. I'd rather throw an underspin with a swim bait thing than just a spinnerbait with a trailer hook or whatever if I can get away from it. But I have just adapted. I've got some of these new Z-Man spinnerbaits that I actually like. I need to get out. I need to start throwing them more. That's the other thing. We get out here, we start fishing. You'd be surprised for those of you guys that, I guess, maybe don't go out fishing in a boat. Maybe you're just bank fishing, or maybe you, I don't know, maybe you guys do or have the ability to just throw everything in your arsenal. I feel I have so many different baits in there. There's no way, even when I feel like oh man, they're hitting. They're like hitting on everything, it seems at times, to like just get through the stuff that I'm trying to see if they'll hit on it, because usually you'll find stuff that they won't hit on, and then other stuff like, oh, they will hit that and you didn't know if they'd hit it or not, kind of stuff. So I try to do some testing when I can, but there's times when I will get done fishing and realize I've never even pulled out an underspin or a swim bait, which is actually, I guess, good. It's like, well, I didn't have to. I was catching them, the chatterbait was just on, or I could go to the chatterbait. I'd get, I was using it like a search bait or a rattle trap, and I'd get a hit or catch a little fish, but then I could stop there and throw a shaky head, whether it be a zinkers or worms, and bam, I could catch fish. Or I could throw that new crawl thing, and it was game on with it. So I didn't really go to spinner baits or these kind of swim baits, or I didn't even need to go to square bills and that kind of stuff. So I do need to get out though and get on some more swim bait fish, because these are some awesome baits. And I've seen times where you can go out there, and although you're catching them on a lot of stuff, you'll throw a little dude like this and a big one will just chomp on it for whatever reason over all the other stuff. I watched Bonsai guy do it with I think it was just a swim bait. I don't think it was an underspin. He caught like the biggest bass of the day. Just threw that swim bait out there. I was watching him reel it. He's just about as dead as you could get reeling, just reeling it back, and bam. So I know how good they are. And jigs. Here's another example. I know how good a jig can be. For me, it's something a little slower, other than if, like, you're talking about Matt's doing, you're flipping and tossing them up to cover. But if you're kind of just throwing them out and kind of working them, say, along a bank like you are a chatterbait when you're trying to cover water, you can do it with a jig, but I feel it's just a slower process. I'd rather be throwing a rattle trap of some kind of crankbait or a chatterbait and then go slow from there. Normally, if those three, one isn't working, I go right to a zinkers, and I feel I can cover just about as much water as I can with a jig. And I figure I figure I more or less have it in my head anyway that I'm going to get more bites and a chance at a big fish with the zinkers on the bottom over a jig. The jig can probably have the biggest fish, but I think you don't get near as many bites with the jig as say a worm, basically. Is what I've seen to where I've gone out and thrown a jig to where like 45 minutes and like, you know what, this jig sucks. Throw on a worm and be like, bam, 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 bam. Like, whoa, they're not big, but man, they're bass and they're right there in the jig. They didn't want the jig. And then all of a sudden, 4 or 5 pounder. Oh, he wanted a worm too, kind of deal. It's like the little ones. It's like some in my mind anyway. I've heard a lot of guys talking about it, like a school. You get the school fired up, and the big one you can like trick the big one. You can get it fired up. If a big fish is running with some other fish that aren't its same size. And I feel I've done that before and several times, but I feel that it's harder to do that with a big, whether it be a jig or just something that's typically known for big bites. I feel you can pass a whole school of fish, you know, or an opportunity 3 to 5 fish, and if none of them just initially look at that first bait and they're like, yeah, and they didn't want it, you didn't really pay attention that there was fish there that you could have got them on. I like to use something that I feel is a more reaction, makes one little something just has to get it, and it can fire up to 3 to 4, 5, or 15 or whatever is right there in that area. And that video with me and Charles is a perfect example. We got on there and the jabberjaw that I just picked up, it's like it just kicked him in and put him on fire. That was the first time I threw that bait at that place. I put it on, threw it out there, and it fired up every fish that was within 50 foot of that side of the bank where we were at, and everything was hitting. And I literally did the outro while fish were still hitting. And I don't know, if it was that one bait that it like fired up the whole, like every fish that was right there was trying to grab that bait. And dummy me wasn't recording right at the beginning of that. I turned it on right where you saw me pulling in a fish. There was actually that bigger fish, a littler fish on the back hook, and one or two trying to get it from those two. It was insane. And then it kept working for a brief period. Charles caught a few, I caught a few more, and then that it slowed down, but then they were still like, I feel we picked off about every fish that was over in that little area eventually. So I'm working on picking up my game. Oh, I switched out. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I got rid of the rattle. The 13 fishing had one of my, actually every freaking weight I'd had in the blank came loose. So I popped the end cap off. Got those out, re-glued them. It's drying right now as we speak. Hopefully it glues. If not, I guess I'm going to have to go with a different glue and actually go buy some good 5-part epoxy and re-glue it right. But it's not a huge deal. Still works fine even if you do hear it make a little noise. It's very annoying. And I've decided I'm leaving the handle alone right at the moment on the Sharp. But it's probably going to be switched out. It does feel, it's hard to explain. It's not that it feels horrible, but it almost feels sticky. To the point where if you guys have had or been around kids, or maybe you're a messy person yourself, and your hands, just like when you touch something that's sticky, and you tend to get sticky on your hands, but every time you feel something that gives you that sensation, you always feel like your hands are dirty. And that rod handle actually gives you that feeling. You cast it and it feels so grippy, so almost sticky, that you feel your hands are sticky. But then you let go of it and you're like touching, and you're like, well, my hands aren't sticky. Then you grab it and it's just one of those things, like it gets on your nerves. It's almost too sticky. Yeah, do it makes a herring head that goes down to a 16th. There's these little bitty ones with the eyeballs. Oh, I can't think of the name. Charles knows the name. I think they carry them at Walmart. Roger Sporting Goods had them they make them with and underspin and without, and they're those little round, they got they're like round jig head with an eye on each side. Some of them have underspin, some of them don't. They sell their own little soft plastics to go with them, and they got the different shaped hook, kind of even more different than this, and they actually look good. And I should have bought some, I just didn't. Joseph Grossman, hi from Doc 15. Oh yeah, and Nate asked, "What's the verdict on the Dark Wolf Ultra?" I'll be honest, I didn't even take the twins out fishing over last weekend. I left both Lure Star streamer rods and my high dollar, most expensive rod I bought from AliExpress with the Airstream Custom just set at home. We didn't go hit any smaller, real little bitty places. I took the Silver Creek down to Charles. He loves it. He was throwing. If you guys did, yeah, the video's out. Check the video. He was throwing a trout magnet in windy. I wouldn't have been throwing a trout magnet. He was throwing a trout magnet. He's probably going to be getting the dark or the CU double from me also with the ultralight tips. What he was throwing that on it, and it does go together good. Like if you guys watch the little shootout videos I was doing, I put it on that with the cork handle I'd switched out on it, and I'm like, oh wow, this Silver Creek goes real good with this rod now. It's just like it's a good combo that works and looks good together. But the Dark Wolf Ultra, I don't even know if I'm gonna get it out this weekend. We're in that heat wave, like it's hot. I go early morning, we fish till it gets hot, and then I just pack up. Like we're not really going, and it's almost too hot to even go wade in the creeks. So I'm not really going into that real BFSy stuff. Like we fish hard, looking for bigger fish or bites, fishing a little bit bigger, faster moving stuff, and then we slow up. So the Teton 661 is about the lightest I've been throwing. I threw the Digit on it, and it took the Digit to just start getting any fish. And that was another thing. We went to a place. At first spot, I threw everything at him. Like I did take my time. I was throwing everything at him, and I finally was like, you know what? Because I need to start using it too. The Digit. I talk about it and I hold it up a lot, but I hardly ever just go out and fish it to like I'm gonna catch a fish with it. I put that Digit on. I don't even think it took 5 minutes. Caught a little. It was a dink, very small bass. Boom, caught a bass. Threw a little bit more. Bam, caught another one. Well, that gave Charles confidence. He took one of the old brats that I had from a year or so ago that I don't really even like. Matt said he's got some. He likes them. I didn't really like the. I put it this way: it's no Digit. I had the shallow and one of the little deeper brats, and now they make a bigger one too. But Charles put one of those on, gave him confidence, and he threw it for a while. He finally caught a bass, but we that's all we could muster out of that place. And the last time we went there, I think I caught 3 fish on a chatterbait. That's right, where the same place where I fished the Karza 2 medium light, and then during the process of switching around, going to another place, I broke that rod and never fished it anywhere else. That was that same place. But we've been there twice now, fished probably 3 hours the first day, couple hours, maybe 2 hours the second day, and only caught like 5 fish. Well, six bass. Missed a bass. I did catch a drum it was a pretty looking drum. Had like real good blue color. Drum aren't bad looking fish. They look way better than a carp, I'll put it to you that way. Put up a fight too. I thought I had a nice, couple pound bass. I had a couple pound drum. But we won't be going back to that place. We went to Charles's pit. It was game on. It was just like a whole different day, which I knew the bite should be on. Storms were coming that night. Like everything was starting to cloud up, slowly over the day. It was starting to cloud, still humid as heck. But it was game on. So I'll talk real quick about that. I don't think there's going to be any issues. Just me out. I didn't take it fishing yet, but just casting all the baits I cast with it. The Dark Wolf Ultra is actually better in my opinion because you don't need to do anything to it now. Now you ain't got to worry about going in order. I didn't put any magnets in it. It's a fixed magnets and it just has enough brakes. They're not all turned all the way up. You'll still have more brakes. Now I run braid. We've had a couple people that if you guys got that green reel, not this reel, but if you guys remember I was talking about that green reel that's $20 and pairing it with the DMX rod. Someone had been commenting, and Charles kind of messaged him back and forth. Also jumped in the conversation because I messaged him. I'm like, hey, somebody's asking questions about the green reel because Charles the only one that bought one. I didn't get one because I couldn't track down the rods. They wouldn't sell them to me. Now they got them listed for like 100 and something a piece instead of 50 something a piece. Which honestly, I've been looking at them. I'm thinking about buying them because another thing I looked up when I was up at Rogers, they had a couple X Prides and a Zodius or two. I think the Zodius were only spinning rods, but I looked at the blank material, and also they had Ducket rods up at Rogers, so I re-looked at the Ducket rods too. The Ducket, not the Ducket, the Dobbins, Dobbins. I call them Dobbins. The Pista rods that I was recommending people to get, or the DMX Street Bass. The Street Bass is just a cheaper blank material, but that rod feels good. And I'd still recommend, if you want a cheap setup just to throw like all around BFS, that Street Bass rod. It's a 3-piece rod. The only downside that I found in it, but it doesn't really fish like a 3-piece. It fishes good. The DMX rod with that green reel, and the subscriber that had commented on it said he goes, man, I filled mine full of, he spooled it up and cast it. That thing's junk. I was like, well, it felt good. He's like, no, it feels good. It does this and that, but it backlashes every time. So he took off some line because I messaged that, not the green one, but the green one is basically like the Zephyr. The Zephyr, in my opinion, is not a great reel on the brakes. So I used less line. And remember, on the Zephyr, you're only like 3 or 4 clicks away from full brakes. Well, I think the green reel is the same way. So therefore, what you got to do is, I would recommend 120 to 140 pounds of braid of whatever strength, the minimum you want to go, or max, or whatever. Just put braid on it, and that reel should cast no problem. That's what Charles did, and that's what I'd recommend. If you're bound to term and you want to use mono or fluorocarbon on it and you want to fill the spool away, well, you probably have to do the same thing we had to do with the Dark Wolf Ultras and them. Add magnets to those brakes, the existing magnets, and that will probably work. And then I had another guy ask me, if you guys don't know, the Dark Wolf Ultra, the Black Knight 2, all of them, if you get magnets and you do the magnet upgrade, you need the 4 by 0.5 millimeter little bitty neodymium or whatever magnets, and you need to put those right on top of the existing magnets, 3 on each side, on the side that moves. The very far back one that doesn't really move, it's hooked in there, that one doesn't get a magnet. That's that simple of a fix. That reel's awesome. If you get the new one and it's got the fixed magnets, you're actually in luck. That reel doesn't need anything. You put line on it, the brakes, it casts great. That reel's awesome. I'm going to get it out and go fishing with both of them, and plan on putting an on the water video together, just showing the comparison. I just haven't done it yet, but I don't have any issues with those. The reel that I've got 2 issues with reels, and that's another thing on my Chatterbait game. If you guys remember, right, when I first got this reel and I put it in a shootout against the MGL, right, the Aldebaran MGL, and I only put as much line as the Aldebaran would hold, right, and then I did a shootout with them. Well, I'm finding out I don't really like the 8:5 to 1 gear ratios, because when I fill them all the way up, it's not even the casting part, it's the reeling part. I feel like it's trying to go too fast. So I've gotten back to, and they put a line there like halfway, like it's half spooled, and that's about where the MGL 30 line, as much as MGL 30 will hold. So I was running into a problem over the weekend. I'm like, man, this reel feels awesome. And I was like, man, this reel sucks. Like, something's wrong. Like, it feels like it's got resistance. And I still have a little more line than I do on that one, but I'm going to put less line again. I'm going to go just a little bit lower, and there's a line there. Because this is like a 34 millimeter spool, 8:5 to 1. But if I put just less line, I basically am giving myself a shallow spool. It's a little heavier than a shallow spool would be. So basically like a 32 millimeter spool, and I go from 8:5 to probably 7.5 or maybe even 7 to 1, which I want. That's one thing I did notice, that everybody and their brother, when I was rewatching some Chatterbait videos, all say they run either, like Brett Hite runs a 6 something. A lot of guys do, but there's been a few guys I watched the videos, they like to run like a 7 to 1. And I'll be honest, they're probably right, because I think I do also. I like the Lingle, that Aldebaran, or the MGL 30 that I was talking about. It was just an HG, not an XG, which is 7. So I'm gonna run if you're wondering why, if you'll see in future videos and you're like, well, Charlie doesn't even run all the line. First of all, I run braid, and this thing halfway spooled will hold more 15-pound braid than I'll ever need. And that's why I was thinking about that back when I had one. I was going to order another one. I almost got the lower one. I'm like, no, I will just probably end up doing them the same way. But then it does give me the option. I can just spool it all the way up if I choose, whether I'm using it for a jig or, I need that faster speed, or I can just, crank the handle faster, right? Because this one also is a high speed, and this dude. And lastly, before I get out of here, because I need to get out of here before this is an hour long. On Lake Erie, we call drum Canadian bass. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I don't mind catching drum. Yeah, I don't want to catch them, on a regular basis, like all the time. I'm not going to go out hunting for them. But if you haven't watched the video, if you guys are new to the channel in the last couple years, and I caught my first true smallmouth bass, that trip, we went over to Melbourne Lake in Kansas. I'd never fished it before. It was part of Average Joe's Fishing Club's little meet and greet. So me, Charles, and my buddy Jeremy, we all meet up, get in Jeremy's boat, and we're out fishing, hunting for smallmouth bass, right? I want my first smallmouth, but you know me, smallmouth eat chatterbait, right? Well, I started out the morning with chatterbait, and you talk about one of the hardest hits I've ever had on a chatterbait. It hit hard, fought hard, was a fight. Well, go check the video out. I caught a freaking huge drum. For when you're expecting a decent bass and it's a big drum, I ended up catching 2 drum or 3 drum that day. I got a smallmouth bass. Go check the video out if you haven't seen it. But I didn't catch it on I didn't even catch it on a shaky head, didn't catch it on chatterbait, crankbait. I caught it on a TRD. That sucker, the red-headed little TRD Ned head with I think it was perfect perch color. Bam. Game on. Got a smallmouth. It's the only smallmouth I've ever caught. So it's my personal best. So lastly, as I'm getting out of here, yeah, smallmouth heaven. Yeah, what's funny is right where I'm at in Missouri, like these local lakes around here, no smallmouth. I go not very far over in Kansas, there are smallmouth. And then, of course, south, some of the more well-known lakes in Missouri, which I just don't get down that way and fish. I probably need to. Matt started talking now about trying to go here, there, which I might. He wanted to do tournaments and whatever. But lastly, let me talk about this reel. If you guys have watched the other video, I caught a couple using this on the Teton with the Dig It. And it's awesome working for that. And then I had it on... What I have it on the Feeling, I think the next day I switched it, and it's an awesome reel. I have one downside to this reel. Well, other than that, just looks weird. I feel like something's missing, like they need to revamp this. I don't know what it is. I don't like something about it. That actually does not bother me. I haven't yet to go, oh man, that's going to suck because it's digging in. I don't even, it happens to hit right where it hasn't become an issue. Here's the only downside in it. They fixed some of the issues that the old Aldebaran have, which I love that reel too, but it had an issue with it just felt weird, right? And it was a little bit on the noisy side casting. This one is not noisy casting. This one definitely casts like a friggin' dream. Here's the downside to this reel, and I don't know why. I can feel the resistance, and you can almost feel it out on the water. You guys see that? Like something... The only thing I can figure it's that anti-reverse roller bearing is just either not made right or just the tolerances are crazy tight and maybe it'll get freer. So like smoothness gear wise, like you can't even feel the gears. Like it just feels so smooth. I can't feel what's giving it the resistance. But it's just there. You can see it. Look at that. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Well, in the initial unboxing, I had that total. I cranked it way loose. Trust me, that is loose, just as loose as any other reels I use. And it's the only reel. Like, watch the Corrado. Now, it honestly is probably the next one that is kind of slow, but it's way freer of a reel. Okay. But I can almost hear the gears in it. Like I think it needs oil again. I think both my Lingles and the Corrado need oil. This one feels smoother than probably any of them. Probably right with this guy. Probably just as smooth. These two feel about the same smoothness. They just like you can't even feel the gears in there. But watch this. Oh, hang on. So you see that? You just tell how free something is. This thing here, see how quick it stops? It's just, it's got some kind of crazy feeling resistance that you can just tell is stopping it. And I've taken all that out of play. I'm guessing it could be too much grease here. And I think those do have, what other reel did I have that has, if it has that plastic worm gear, that can make them feel kind of just not as freed up. And maybe it's got bushing. I don't know. It definitely just. I love everything about the reel. I think they've made an upgrade. This is probably the best all-around BFS reel you can get. It will cast down or beat your little micro, 1 gram trout magnet type stuff. It can go right there with them. It may not be able to beat them, or it may beat them or whatever, but it's right there with them. But it'll also go to the other end. It'll hold enough line to get the job done. It's a casting beast. It just works very good. The only issue, like I said, is that, which is, it's kind of nitpicky because once you get out and, anytime you cast and throw a bait, you're going to have some resistance that probably picks up, and it's something there for guys like me that are, I guess you could say, are a little nitpicky on stuff. It sucks that's there on a 200 and, well, some of you guys are paying like 360. I paid like 280, like on a 287. A reel that expensive should be as free as the $170 reel, right? I still say this. I will say this much. Let me just say this real quick. I got to say it. Somebody's got to say it. I still think, as much as I like this one now, because it palms good, everything works good. Honestly believe if they would have just made this out of magnesium like they did this, put the bigger line guide, this one, they bogged this one down intentionally. Okay, the Corrado has been dummied down basically, so it can't compete with their Aldebaran. But I think this is still probably the best frame for palming. I think this needs to be made just a little bit. See how they've got that where when you put your thumb, if that was made a little flatter or a little more support there, that is by far the best palming reel that any company's ever made. If they would have made it out of magnesium, given it, a little higher end feel, this would have made a better, newer Aldebaran than the last two versions that they've come out with. Just my opinion. This is, in my opinion, the best frame setup that Shimano has put out probably ever. But they've dummied it up because it's in a Corrado that they're selling, reasonably priced. It's in the SLX or whatever. And the Scorpion in an aluminum frame, it's got this crazy little, it's far enough out of the way it doesn't really get a big, but look how small that is compared to, let's be honest, it can't cost any more money to make these than it does these. If it does, it's a matter of pennies, 50 cents, $1. It's just their technology, they're at some point you'll probably see every reel made will have something similar to this, because I'm not sure if you need the T-wings like the Daiwas, but you definitely need that cone, and you need to, reel manufacturers are starting to figure out, just like Abu Garcia, get that thing away, get it big, where there's no sharp edges, and that helps your casting in any, it can't hurt, it only helps the casting. Right? But it's just my opinion. because other than this, it just has that, little blocky or heavier feel than this, and it just, doesn't look as fancy. You can just tell not as much time and efforts went into this. It's just a dummied down version. But the frame itself, how it's made, I think I actually prefer if they would have just made everything, like I said, into on this frame, and they still could. Somebody like, oh, why would they do that? Well, let me explain something. Shimano's been known to do stuff like that. The old Corrado E that everybody loved replaced the Chronarch D, which everybody loved, and they did that crazy swap thing, and then they came out with the Corrado G, which it may have been a good reel, but nobody liked it. It was not what the Corrado E was, and the Corrado E, which was just basically dummied up to look like a Chronarch, went on to. It's a good reel, but it wasn't as loved as the Corrado D was, which is a bigger, or the Chronarch D, which is the bigger white reel that everybody still wants. That D7 still sells for crazy money. What's funny is you can go right on eBay right now, and there's Metaniums, which was basically the same version coming. It's actually lighter because it's magnesium, I believe. Yeah, it's magnesium, had the same capabilities, probably more, but it just wasn't that D7 Chronarch and that good white with gold on it. And people love that reel, and I don't think a lot of guys caught on to. And it's still there for the takings. There's the Metanium versions are still there, the old ones. What else? Oh, the Lingle. What about the Lingle? I'm not sure about the Lingle, but I know it's freer than the Aldebaran 22. See how free that thing is? It needs grease. So stay tuned, guys. A lot of stuff coming up. I've got this. I guess lastly, as I get out of here, since we broke our record again, we go over an hour. What are you talking about, HP? The 22? Work on it. Yeah, this reel, man. This is an awesome reel, I have to admit. Right there, though. Look at that. Disgusting. But man, you talk about they made something light palm. I actually like the color way better than I thought it would. Doesn't really go with anything, but I don't mind the color. The only issue I have with this reel is this right here. Look how, oh my God. Now it's still fairly new. This reel and this reel. And this reel, I'll be honest, it's got a little more. It's free. And I think it's just a new factor. I think the new hasn't worn off, and I'm comparing it to this dude that I've been out using and using and using. This thing's just freed up and rocking. This thing just freaking feels smooth, casts good. It's going. Kind of the same thing with this guy, except he started making a little noise. And I think this one, I had a little more line than that one, and then just with it was a little more kind of a bound up feel. But as you can see, it's still freer than the Aldebaran. What's funny, I traded Charles, or I actually sold him the Silver Creek. He goes, this thing's kind of whatever. I'm like, dude, you don't even know what bound up is, because trust me, the Silver Creek, Charles may have adjusted the tension, or he did something to it maybe, because, I have no reason to talk highly about the Silver Creek. It doesn't benefit me one bit. I've already sold to Charles. That reel felt very good. The Airstream Custom over there, honestly, in my opinion, feels just a little bit better, and I kept it because of the bigger spool, and it just had a little more refined feel to it than that Silver Creek. But that Silver Creek felt very good, casts very well. It's just a one-trick pony. Same thing with that Airstream Custom. That's where this reel and the older Aldebaran actually beat them still on a. Man, that thing sucks. Jesus. It has them beat on just awesome casting of BFS, period. Boom. This one also does it. But the Dark Wolf Ultra is a close right there with these guys, or the Black Knight too, because that reel, I got that last one with the fixed brakes, $61 on sale. $60 reel can hang right with this almost my price, $300, $287, whatever. So you could buy, oh boy, you can buy a lot of Dark Wolf Ultras for what you could buy this one reel. But man, you definitely you're going to be missing out a little bit. Do I recommend everybody goes out and buys one of these? No. I'm hoping I honestly hope they change it a little bit. If this sticks just like the older Aldebaran, 16 did for like 5 years, God, I hope it doesn't. I hope they refine it a little more as they go. I honestly feel this is like a unfinished look. That should have been smoothed off. They thought they were trying to match it to this, but that just looks jinky. It looks kind of funky. Not right. And lastly, as I get out of here, I've felt kind of like the T-wings. They almost look a little different, but you can see they serve a purpose, right? There's this huge thing that could be out there. It could be at any point where you hit the button, so you kind of have to have an opening there. But like this reel from certain angles just has an awesome look and feel. But I know what I was going to talk about when I grabbed the lingo. When I was up at Rogers and I almost bought a David Fritz cranking rod, because Brett Height talks about, crankbaits, 7'4" heavy action glass rod is I think what he said he started with. That first red evergreen rod he had, the Hercules, or that Mega Bass, or is that evergreen? Hercules or whatever. But now you got the combat sticks. Well, they sell a 7-foot medium heavy glass, but up at Rogers they got the old Fritz perfect crankbait or perfect cranking stick with the old green lures. If you guys know what I'm talking about, David Fritz lures green. They've got 4 or 5 up at Rogers, a couple mediums and a couple medium heavies. Well, I was like, and they're only $79. I almost bought one just so I could say I've tried, either medium heavy or whatever cranking thing for chatterbaits. But I believe back in the day I tried. Do you remember the cranking stick? They still sell a version, but they used to have a real cool green Bass Pro Shops did cranking stick. If I could actually find an old one of those in a medium heavy or heavy, I'd probably try to buy one. So I had that David Fritz, the lose rod green. I just went up to the counter. I said, give me one of those because I wanted to see what a zillion felt like on it. So I asked him to hand me one of the zillions. And I put it on it. And I'm like, yeah, it actually doesn't feel bad. That lose, if you guys haven't seen those, it's got that huge blank with a pretty big grip on it. And the lose, or the zillion, I put it on. I was like, man, it actually doesn't. It didn't feel bad. Like I could fish it. It's not going to fish as good and as comfortable as the rods I got now, but it's doable. But then I just right under the zillion was Steez, and I'm like, let me look at that Steez real quick. And I had thought. I guess in my mind I had it that the Steez and this lingle was a copy, so it should be the same size as the Steez. But I'm pretty sure the Steez is it's smaller. Because when I grabbed that Steez, I was like, oh my God, that reel felt very good. But they're very expensive, right? These are like, I can get these for like $240 or $50, right? With the SV Boost. To get a Boost Steez, you got to get the limited or the limited shallow spool, which I really want, but they're like $500. They're expensive on it if and when Digitaka ever gets them. So I know I'm trying to talk myself out. I don't need that freaking reel, but man, if I'm spending 280 something on a Shimano, and I don't even like Shimano anymore. Remember, guys? No, but seriously, I don't know. It's one of those things that's on my mind. You guys know how you are, how I am, how you are. You see something, and you're like, oh boy, if at some point cards fall right, money's right, deal comes along, look who got a Steez Shallow Edition, right? Oh, you don't like the hump? That's the power hump. I actually liked the hump back in the day on those. I remember the first cool looking Bass Pro Shops rod I ever saw. I know somebody goes, there's not a cool looking Bass Pro Shops rod, but it was some kind of spiral, and I don't think it was a spiral guides. I think it was a spiral wrapped rod. I remember it was like a gray and a blue. That's when you had to go down to Bass Pro Shops in Springfield. We went down to Bass Pro Shops in Springfield, and had the power hump grip, full extended handle with that hump right there. I actually like those because I got fairly big hands. I like that hump on those. I like the old Diawoods. If you guys ever watch my old videos, I had a few of those rods not too long ago. Daiwa used to have like a hump like that, similar. Man, I saw that rod, and I want to say it was probably only 79. It may have been $129, but at the time I was pretty young, probably late teens, early 20s. I could not afford that rod. I was like, oh man, I'd like to buy that rod. And at that time, you could go across the parking lot, and I think they've moved. They may still have it. They have like their basically scratch and dent and return and whatever. And I found that freaking rod. I don't even remember what. Something was wrong with it. I found it there like cheaper. I bought that sucker. And you had to watch out because, like, I will not buy a rod if it's got anything broken off the tip, whether it be an inch, 5 inches, whatever. It just kills the action. But if it's like a guide partway down, because I can switch out a guide, or if it's, whatever it may be, as long as the tip's not been damaged, I will, think about buying that rod if I really wanted one. So anyway, that's just a story. Also, was that the same year? I think I went down there. I remember I met Lefty Cray, Babe Winkleman, and Lefty Cray was having a seminar on fly fishing. I was kind of into all of fishing. I was bass fishing, fly fishing, and four bass, and he was doing a seminar on fly fishing. And man, that little old stout dude could freaking whip that fly rod. He just shoot it like, boom, and take all. Like, it's the first time I'd ever seen anybody in person. I've watched videos on him doing it, but the complete fly line was it 90 foot of fly line? Your average fly line, I think, comes in like 90 feet, and then you tie on your backing. But he could take that complete fly line, and it didn't look like he wasn't moving much. He was flicking his elbow and wrist and just foop. And when he'd let go and shoot that line, it'd just shoot like that, like this. Right out it went. And he had me up there, and I'm like probably a foot taller than him. Back then I was pretty stout. I definitely probably have more muscles now, but I was definitely stronger then. Probably, definitely just bigger overall. And man, he's trying to show me how to do that. I couldn't get but like, I don't know, maybe 70, maybe all but maybe 20 foot of it out. And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on here, Lefty, but I suck. And I never did get fly fishing down the casting. I just got where I could cast pretty good. BPS mean green. Oh yeah, Charles, if you're on here, what are the name of those little freaking jigs? That I went and got of yours. You said you got at Walmart, and you can get the little. You just show me the little purple trailers, little crawl-looking deals. I had them up. I was looking at them at Rogers. I almost bought a couple packs, but I'm like, I'll just wait until I'm gonna get all my regular size swim bait stuff figured out, and then I'm gonna go with the true BFS stuff. Jawbone. That don't sound right. Jawbreaker. No. Are you sure? Nah, Nate. I don't think that's right. Bonehead. That's it. Charles. Yeah, Bonehead. Bonehead jigs and all that stuff. I think it was over in the crappie section, but man, they're pretty good looking stuff. I'm gonna go up, pick out some. I'll probably pick out 3 or 4 different heads. Probably 16th and an 8th. Probably just the black head ones with the underspins, 16 and 8th, and then pick out a couple of those little. They got like little crawl, almost kind of like the TRD bugs, but maybe a little bit smaller. I'll probably pick out a few of those. And they had their own swim bait, little miniature swim baits too, but it's good looking stuff. I just wasn't ready to like jump in on that deal. I saw them up there though. It's good that they got them up at Rogers. You can go right up and get them right then and there. So anyway, yeah, I gotta get out of here. I know, I gotta go. I'm gonna put. This is going back on 13 fishing. This is going on with actual, because I don't have any 15 left. It's going with 20-pound blue 4-strand braid for now, about half filled up. And it's going on our stoutest contest rod, which is the Sharp. Then this reel is going to go on the Quick. I think the filling is going to go, the Joker is going to go back on the filling. That was just a good combo. The Tatula and the Lingle, the Joker and the filling is a pretty good combo. This dude's going right back on that Teton 661 because tetton in all these rods, and I'm having issues with hook sets and with this and that. What's funny is before I got all these other rods, I just kind of had my regular bass rods, and then I started getting into BFS, and I had the real little stuff I was throwing with the 632 ultralight tetton. When I bought the 661, I started throwing everything on the 661 just to try it out, remember? And I never had an issue with hookups. Like I felt like I got hookups on half-ounce spinner baits. I really didn't throw chatterbaits on it much, but I was throwing some pretty big spinner baits. I felt like I didn't have an issue with hookups. I was throwing bigger rattle traps. I was even throwing the whopper plopper, the full-size whopper plopper, and I think every fish that hit that thing while I was throwing it, I caught. Shaky head's been like a no-brainer. That 661 Teton just is a good. It's just got a good the hook set is forgiving for as soft as rod as it is, but it still has that just enough power like it gets that hook in there. It's hard to explain. I think I just got to get the feeling and the quick and the sharp in that, get the wheelhouse figured out on which way, where to set. And I think it's just I just think I'm setting too soft for the most part over these last several months. Because I've noticed when we would go out with, and it's going to sound funny, it's going to sound funny. It's going to make me sound almost like a wuss. We started fishing with Matt and go out, and when it was just me and Charles and Matt, Charles probably didn't know because he didn't go fishing with the girls, and Hannah wasn't paying much attention to, but Matt, his daughter Maddie, was setting the hook harder than me. Now Matt, he's setting the hook hard. You guys seen the video? He done smacked me I don't know how many times. Matt sets the hook hard as he can, which you don't have to set that hard. It doesn't hurt if you got, if your stuff's right. It isn't gonna hurt. But Maddie actually, he's taught her to she puts a little wind up into her hook sets, which is a good thing. And I've noticed, which I shouldn't have to set the hook as hard as what she does. She's probably half the weight as me. But I think I'm a little laxed on my hook sets is what I'm going to work on this coming weekend. Reset everything up, reset the rods, get it, and then it's another thing to be paying attention what you have at the time. A lot of times, if you just have that one way to set a hook is not really a good thing, which I did kind of I guess, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. Not relearn, because I already knew that with the chatterbait, typically you don't, which if you've watched any chatterbait videos on the guys talking about it from Brett Height to a lot of different pros or whatever, you don't really do a jig. It's not like a jig hook set. It's not that pow, hard. It's kind of like a sweeping, you lay into it kind of thing. You don't have to, pop that rod real hard like you would, because, and I think normally, like I talked about at the beginning of this video, I think the reason people have gotten in the habit of doing that is for that reason. They won't pop that mouth open. You just kind of, that fish grabs it and you're kind of pull, you let that rod load up. That's why they like them softer rods, but it's kind of the same thing with most any rod. You kind of feel the weight and then you yank. You don't just, that knee jerk, like you feel something, you yank, as hard as you can, is not really as good for a chatterbait hook set. Anyway, all right, I'm out here way over time. Scott Martin hook set. Yeah, it's just what the pros, everybody's gotten. If they're on film, they rear back and they lean and they look and they turn and they, pow. But that's not a bad hook set to have. But you can also, usually just a solid jerk should set the hook. Because if you guys have ever fished with kids, I'm not going to say just women, guys also, but people that have not fished and don't really know set the hook. What do you mean? I've seen people, if the bite is right, or say the bite's off for setting the hook, and sometimes fish just get hooked easier by not setting the hook. They start reeling, they get anxious, like, oh, I got one, and they start reeling faster, and they get those in, and you're like, how'd you just do that? I've seen days like that where it's just like they didn't want the hook set. It's like you can just just start reeling faster is all you really needed to do. On various things, whether it be a worm, a spinnerbait, a crankbait. Lastly, I'm out of here, but I did catch a double digit. I just wanted to get that out there. It's coming out in this video, caught a double digit. Problem is, there's a friggin' catfish. But stay tuned for that. And the GoPro went dead right when just anyway. Wasn't a personal best catfish. It may have been as far as on rod and reel. I can't remember what the biggest catfish I caught. Maybe that is. I don't even know, but it was huge. Big, giant catfish on this bait right here. I can't remember if I had the zinkers or I might have had a regular craw on it back then, but on this bait right here, 1/2 ounce purple chatterbait, threw it right up against just a little lay down, probably only a foot and a half of water. Huge catfish. Channel cat, yeah, fight was on. But anyway, I'm out of here, guys. I'm gonna get ready for bed, and I've still got to edit that video that's got the catfish in it. Me and Matt, we had a good day. Okay, I might as well just spoiler alert. You heard me talking about earlier, this bait. I got in what is that fish weight? Oh, we guessed it. And you guys tell me when you first see that fish, you guys guess when we're holding it, because I don't think we told you what it weighed until when we were weighing it. But Matt guessed that fish at 20 catfish on the chatterbait. I guessed it at 15. Can you guys guess who was closest? And when you see the fish, guess what you think it weighed? But this bait right here was the first time, and I will admit it, that because I've been dogging some of the Strike King stuff and the red eye shad. But when I went out there and was kind of throwing these back and forth, I don't know. I had more confidence in the red eye shad in that color than I did my Booyah hard knocker, and we caught some fish. The only downside was, and I'm not even really going to blame the hooks or the this bait. I'm going to blame me that I had too soft a rod. Man, I missed a giant. I called it like 4.5, maybe 5. Matt could have swore it was like a lot bigger bass. You'll see the video. I haven't even looked back at the footage. It's too heartbreaking to look. I'm just going to look at it once when I edit that video. But I missed a big fish on this bait, on the feeling rod, and I think it's just because these hooks were a little too strong. So this will be getting thrown with either the sharp, or maybe I might go down to the quick and try it again and see what's what. But I definitely like that color Strike King. I guess that's a downside to some of the Strike Kings. If you see me talk, they don't really make a true Toledo gold. They got that crazy yellow and red one that isn't really a great color. I have tried those before. I did not like that color. So I am going to get, oh yeah. And Matt told me, he goes, I said, I think that's the color you had. He goes, well, I don't remember that little spot on it. Well, I spotted one up at Rogers. I didn't buy any more because I already have these two and the other Booyah hard knocker. But they do have one other one up there. This is called Oyster from Tackle Warehouse, but they have one up at Rogers that looks like this exact color. That may be either a brighter orange or almost a reddish color. And it's got a slight line and a little bit of a blue, a little bit of a green back, and it was something to do with money or something. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a good looking bait too. But it looks like this and it are very close, like they should do the same thing as far as attracting fish. So anyway, guys, I'm done. Wow, this is forever. I will talk to you guys later. Nate's already guessed it, and you didn't even see it yet. All right, guys, get out, go bass some bonsai, but whatever you do, make sure you have fun doing it. Stay tuned for that other video. I'm going to try to do another live before I get out and fish. I'm going to get out this weekend, but they're calling starting tomorrow temps either in 100 or close to it, and the heat indices or whatever, it's going to feel like way over 100 into the weekend. Like Saturday and Sunday are going to be hot. I'm going to try to get out early, you know, just as soon as you can see. The sun won't even be out yet. I'm going to start fishing until I get just too hot, and then we'll be packing it up, and then the same thing on the next day. So hopefully get enough fish catching and footage in and get enough testing done. I'm going to try to test a little bit on my chatterbaits, try to get some swim baits in the mix, but then I want to get on hopefully another rattle trap bite and see if I can, mainly my hookup ratios, I'm going to make sure that is picked back up, I guess, where it should be, or I'm going to figure out something different. And I might try to get a combat stick. I don't know, part of me, and I may wait till Tackle Warehouse does their winter thing, because $200 is a lot of money to spend on a rod that I may not even like, but that 7-foot medium heavy I could probably use. But I don't know. You guys comment what you think as far as, or if you guys fish chatterbaits, what's your chatterbait rod of choice? And a lot of guys will, that are nuts into it. I'm not really quite there. And I know Tactical Bass, and I've heard Matt Allen talk about it a few times. They kind of have a couple chatterbait setups. They've got like kind of like what I have set up for an all around. But then if they're in grass, they typically, that's when they get into that bigger rod and bigger but softer, I guess, a little more forgiving rod, and like 20-pound fluorocarbon. They don't use braid to leader. But I don't know, comment what you guys think. They also make an 1.25 ounce jackhammer that I've been contemplating about buying one just to try it. I bought one of those crazy huge ones. You guys have seen it before, that Picasso one that was horrible to cast and throw, and I gave up on it, but it was like a 2 or 3 ounce. But I thought about getting the either 3/4 ounce, or if I did that, I'd probably just take a regular jackhammer and add some weight in here and push the trailer on over it and try it deeper water. But I've thought about buying one in this color, actually, the Bee Height Delight, just 1.25 ounces and fishing it deeper and just seeing if I can get on something like that. I almost bought one of the big ones, the big blades, because they come in like a 3/4 tonight for 10, but I'm like, I am not wasting my money. I don't think I want a bait that big. Seven-foot medium heavy ugly stick. Used for crankbaits. You're talking about like deep diving type crankbaits? Is it a 7-foot medium heavy ugly stick? It's probably just probably a combination of graphite, fiberglass, more likely. But yeah, they're acting like between a 7 to 7'6", but 7.2 to 4, like heavy action glass rod, or some of the composite fiberglass graphite composite medium heavies or whatever. I think that Fritz rod would have worked good. The David Fritz rod probably would be a good chatterbait rod. The problem is I think my rods have that. I think that 13 fishing rod has about because I took it up and compared it to, they've got a couple of the exact same rods that I like, the 13 fishing I have. I took it up and I kind of compared it to that, and I'm like, dude, it is so freaking close. Like the actions, it's the parabolic type bend is so close that I don't see how that rod could help me that much more, other than it's just going to wear me out quicker in a day of fishing than my rod. But I guess I could be wrong. So it's something I may do this winter. I may go all in. I get bored. I'm not going to do it now. I got all this other stuff going on. But if I get bored, what I may do is gearing up for next summer. I kind of wanted to do it this summer, but I don't really have enough spare money or the time. I almost went nuts and got one of the stealth blades, the melee jig. I do want to get the new Berkeley. Have you guys seen that new Berkeley one coming out with the chatterbait that's got instead of the Berkeley now, or is it the Booyah melee has like, this is like in the middle of the head. Well, the Berkeley bait one has like the head itself is molded to where the blade goes down at the beginning of it. I still don't think they'll be the old Z-Man originals or the jackhammers or the knockoff like we're getting from AliExpress. But it does look, it's a little bit different design, and so I thought about doing that because chatterbaits, I would definitely say, are probably my favorite thing to fish, and I don't know, why not? Like, one of each, go out, throw them around. Maybe one just pops up way better than the others, but I really don't think it's going to be better than our $3.50 baits that do a pretty good freaking job of getting bit, right? I just need to, I'm pretty sure, go back to that bigger hook. If you guys are just catching this video somewhere that wasn't at the beginning, I'm going to slowly, even though I'm going to test them a little bit more, but I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start ordering all of my AliExpress ones in that little bit bigger hook, just after some of the issues I've had. That you're not going to lose anything. I've already tried what I thought would be the benefits of being a little bit smaller aren't there. You can't really set the hook on a smaller rod any better than you would with this one. You just stand a better chance of getting a good solid hook set with whatever rod you're using, with the standard size that the jackhammer comes with, 3/8 or ½ ounce. I think all the other ones are that way too. They just have this one size hook on all theirs. For whatever reason, the AliExpress ones had the smaller hook on the smaller one, but then on the 18 grams or their ½ ounce, it does have the bigger hook like this. So that's what all of mine will be eventually. I don't know what I'm going to do with the ones I already have. I'm probably just going to fish them until they get totally beat up, either lost, or at some point once I've bought all the others, which will probably be over this winter, then I'll just give them to Noah. The jackhammers, I didn't know what I was going to do. Still don't know 100%. I'm probably just going to freaking fish the things. I got like 60 bucks in them. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. When the other ones come in, what I may do is I may have Matt fish the jackhammer side by side, me fishing the other one, and then do like a swap a couple hours later, and see if if he thinks there's a difference or whatever. All right, guys, I'm really gone for sure this time. I got to go. Thanks for watching.